I just want to thank everyone for coming out. My name is Tremaine Terry. I'm the Diversity Program Manager at Capital Region Water. So my role at Capital Region Water is to increase participation for minority-owned, women-owned, and other disadvantaged businesses on our construction-related, as well as some of our professional services contracts. Also from Capital Region Water, but not here today, is our Director of Engineering, Mr. Dave Stewart. And then we also have in attendance our Community Outreach Manager, Andrew Bliss, as well as our Elizabeth Gonzalez, who is also a part of our Community Outreach team. We're joined today by the City of Harrisburg, the Executive Director for the Department of Community and Economic Development, Ms. Jackie Parker, as well as the LERTA Administrator, Charles White. From Impact Harrisburg, we're joined by the Executive Director, Sheila Dow Ford, and not here today, probably because he lives closer to Philly and was dealing with a lot of bad weather, is the Compliance Manager, Mr. Larry Siegel. Then we are also joined by our consultants from the MT Johnson Group, Mel Johnson, Rhonda Mays, and John Dunlap, as well as Mr. Jeff Lawrence from the Chenry Group. So as I mentioned, this is the first of what we hope to be a series of workshops, all in an effort to prepare small businesses to do work with the City of Harrisburg and Capital Region Water. Some ideas for future workshops are Meet the Primes, a networking event, as well as workshops for bonding and capital. We know that a lot of small businesses have issues and concerns as it relates to bonding and finding the financing. Also programs designed for training and capacity building. Again, I know that the work that we do, there's a tremendous need to build capacity within small businesses. Another key component, if you're a small business bidding on government contracts, is the estimating and bidding and making sure that your quotes are solid, as well as probably most importantly, job safety, and then the minority, women, and disadvantaged business certification process, which also troubles some MWDBEs. So, what is an MWDBE? I see we have a lot of people here who registered or signed up and stated that they were a minority-owned business. And yes, that's true. You're a minority, you own your business, so you're a minority-owned business. But unless you're certified and have the certification to state so, we can't necessarily always count you as an MBE, WBE, or DBE. So an MBE is a minority-owned business or a minority business enterprise assumed by the associated certifying agencies. A woman-owned business is the same as a woman-owned business or a women's business enterprise. And a disadvantaged business, or DBE, is a veteran-owned business, a disabled veteran-owned business. For CRW, we count gay and lesbian-owned businesses as well. Those are all examples of disadvantaged businesses. And again, John Dunlap's going to get into more details about the certification process when it's his turn to speak. So why are we here? For Capital Region Water, we took a look back, a snapshot of all of our contracting over the last few years, and we realized that our contracting approach did not represent the diversity in our community. So we wanted to be proactive and put together a program to help adjust that. And we realized that this is an opportunity for growth, not only for the small businesses, but the prime contractors as well. Studies show that contractors using diverse suppliers a lot of times have tremendous profits and land a lot of opportunities. So we look at this as an opportunity for growth for everyone. Because as you can see, at Capital Region Water, we have over $300 million worth of capital projects over the next 20 years. So we realize that this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. The goals that we're setting and the projects that we're putting out there, we may not see the immediate returns, but we're hopeful that within the next 20 years that a lot of folks in this room, or your kids or the individuals that you hand your businesses down to, will be instrumental in the work that we're doing at Capital Region Water. And then the city's going to talk about their projects and all the projects that they have as well. But as I said, for CRW, we have over $300 million worth of projects in the next 20 years, and that's just what we know. That's not including the projects that pop up that we don't know about. For Capital Region Water, we recently put together our MWDBE plan, which applies to construction contracts that exceed the Pennsylvania Municipal Authorities Act bidding threshold of $20,100. So any construction contract that's estimated over $20,100, we have to publicly bid. And when we publicly bid that contract, our MWDBE plan applies to that contract. What we do at CRW is we set minimum participation levels, where we look to the dollar amount, and then we look at how much of that participation we think can be had by minority-owned, women-owned, and other disadvantaged businesses. For example, we'll look at a project and the estimated cost may be $10 million, and we'll set the MPLs or minimum participation levels at 15% minority-owned businesses and maybe 5% women-owned businesses or 10% women-owned businesses, depending on what's out there. So again, the minimum participation levels are all in relation to the dollar amount of the contract, so the percentage of the contract. And then also part of our business diversity program is our workforce development program. Again, that's a program designed to assist small minority-owned, women-owned businesses to better prepare them to do work with CRW. And this workshop is a result of our workforce development program. I'm now going to pass it over to Sheila Dow Ford from Impact Harrisburg, and she'll be able to share a little bit about what she's doing in the city of Harrisburg.
Thank you, Tremaine. Thank you for the introduction. Once again, my name is Sheila Dow Ford, and I'm the Executive Director of Impact Harrisburg. A little bit about us. We are a private, non-profit entity that was established a few years ago, about 5 years ago in actuality, and we were established as an outcome of the Harrisburg Strong Plan, which was the plan that really was the to recalibrate the economic development initiatives within the city of Harrisburg and to actually create a better financial opportunity basically for the city going forward, because you know the city had been in fiscal distress. So what happened is those who were responsible for putting together the Harrisburg Strong Plan thought it would be a good idea to start a fund using the proceeds from the sale of the incinerator, using those proceeds, a portion of them, to start a fund, which is Impact Harrisburg, the purpose of which is to serve as a spur for economic development within the city. We were given about $13.3 million for that purpose, and I have been a member of the Executive Director of Impact Harrisburg for about a year and a half at this point. Two members of my board are here. I would like to introduce them. Carl Singleton is here. Carl. And Jackie Parker is here, who's with the City of Harrisburg. And you'll be hearing from Jackie a little bit later. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing, though. We really are working in partnership with the City of Harrisburg and with Capital Region Water on a couple of initiatives. And we're very pleased and proud that we've been able to do that. We have two basic funds. We have the Economic Development Fund within the ambit of our resource control, economic development, and the Community Building Fund. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the kinds of projects we have funded. We have given out a significant amount of money, and we have a strong interest in MBE, DBE participation in our programs, in all of our construction projects. If you give me a moment, I could do this by heart, but I think I'll take a look at my list just to walk through some of the programs that we funded. These are the ones that we funded that have already been completed. Webpage FX, that's on Front Street, and we help them with the purchase of the property that they have and with the extension of that property. So there's some property expansion that's going on there. And why did we fund that? Because there's an expectation that Webpage FX is going to hire at least 100 people over the next year or so. That's big. That's a spark. Okay, an economic development spark. I see you shaking your head, and it's true, within the city of Harrisburg. So we're pleased that we were able to do that. And the objective, of course, is to leverage our dollars with other dollars. That's very important to us. We've also funded the City of Harrisburg software program, which was a software program, a web-based program that will allow them to actually just have a better infrastructure, web-based infrastructure within the city that was needed. There was a lot of deferred maintenance there, so we helped with them there with that. Harrisburg River Rescue, right, is also another project we funded. These are the complete projects. The Paxton Homes, that's a project off of Paxton Street, and that's going to be a senior citizen complex. It's where Paxton Ministries has its large building. So we have funded the soft cost for that project, and so each of you who is in here needs to be aware that that project will be, actually, I think probably within the next 6 months or so, there's going to be construction starting on that project, I would think. So that's just a tip for all of you. The playground project is one that we've not yet, we funded, but it's not yet complete. That is, though, a joint project between and among CRW, the City of Harrisburg, and Impact Harrisburg. And that's a playground resurfacing project. That's a project that, although it's not large, is one where we have an expectation that there will be participation from those of you who are in this room. Let me tell you a little bit about where we are in terms of our expectations, our aspirations. And Impact Harrisburg, our board, but very carefully about where they wanted to set their aspirational goals. They have an aspirational goal of 38% on MBE, DBE, WBE. That's big, we know that. But I've also participated in projects here in the city. When I was on the board of Harrisburg University, we had a 22% goal, and we were able to meet that. And I remember the mayor at the time, this was some years ago, told us we wouldn't meet it. And I remember sitting in his office. I thought my colleague was going to faint, but we said we'll meet it, and we did, because we worked very hard to get to that goal. So we believe that we understand that you set aspirational goals. We understand that you have to work hard for them. We are willing, able, and committed to working with Capital Region Water and with the City of Harrisburg as partners around that particular goal that we had. Because if you don't set it, you don't know what to strive for. A couple of our other projects. There's the Tri-County Community Development Corporation up on Derry Street, and we have funded projects for them that are going in at the Mulder Square in that area, around 13th and Derry. And we have one house that just actually, for which there was a ribbon cutting a few weeks ago. Tri-County Community Action Commission, there's a facade project that will be starting in April, so you need to know about that. Camp Curtin YMCA, they have a project that is starting very soon, so you need to know about that project. They might have actually have a full complement of folks on that project, but Jamie and Harvey is there, and he's the guy who's in charge of Camp Curtin Y, and he's committed to our participation expectations and trying very hard to meet them. Then we also have the East Shore YMCA. They have a, not a large project, it's a mid-sized project, so you need to check them out. Then we have the Redevelopment Authority. That's just a project where they're raising houses as in tearing them down. And then we have Gamut Theater, and they're going to start, they're working with Pyramid Construction. Check them out, so go to Pyramid and ask them who they're using on their project. The Salvation Army has a $12 million project over at 29th Street, and they're looking to get some additional funding, but they're working hard on that project. Once again, that's another project you should be aware of. So they're not quite ready to start. You need to know, though, that this is in the pipeline, and once they get all their funding together, I'm sorry, Mel, for standing behind you. But once they get all their funding together, they will have, that project will be moving along very quickly, and they have, I think they're at about $9 million now. And then there's TLC, Tariq Castile. Hi, Tariq. You talking? Good. Okay, thanks. Hey. So anyway, Tariq Castile with TLC Construction is here, and they have the hub, which is right off of, I call it off of 4th Street because I always walk over to it from 4th Street, but it's not exactly at 4th Street. What street is it at? It's Fulton Street. And so that's a large project, and that project is almost complete. And that has been one that has been nearly 100% minority participation. So, and that should be opening very soon. Is that right? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. So those are the projects that we are currently funding. Once again, the objective is to leverage our dollars with other dollars from various sources. I want to tell you a little bit about who's on my board. A couple of the people I talked about, two of them. Brian Hudson is also on my board, Gloria Martin Roberts. Of course, I want to go back to Brian Hudson. He is the Executive Director of PHFA, so we try to leverage those dollars, and that's going to be important as we move forward. I'm going to talk about the Harrisburg Business Opportunity Fund and what we're doing there. But among the other members of my board, there's Dale Lanninga, there is Doug Hill, and Brittany Brock. So we have and Russ Montgomery. These are people who are well known within our community. They come from the banking sectors, they come from the political and business sectors, they come from the community, and it's a good board and we're working hard, and they serve in addition to Jackie and Carl. So moving right along, so we have a new program. It's actually called, we changed it a few weeks ago. It's now going to be called the Harrisburg Business Opportunity Fund. And what we've done is Impact Harrisburg has contributed $350,000, and Brian Hudson at PHFA has actually invested $650,000 in this fund. So we have $1 million now. So that's our seed money. And we're going to announce the fund, and it will be announced in a formal way on March 20th at our board meeting. Our board meetings always take place at PHFA on Front Street, and they begin at 10:30 a.m. So everyone, they're open to the public. I want to tell you a little bit about the fund. It's for startups and it's for established businesses within the city, except for real estate investment trust and the like are not and investment vehicles are not included. But otherwise, we want those who, the eligibility requirements are pretty broad, with the understanding that this is really a fund that is for small businesses and is designed to generate, right, to act as a catalyst, to generate some income-producing businesses and businesses that will also hire members of our community. That's one of our main objectives. So the funds will have a micro-lending component. They'll start at about $1,000, and they'll go up to about $100,000. In addition to the partnership with PHFA, we are also working with Community First Fund, and they will administer this loan fund on our behalf. I talked about the launch on March 20th and the fact that it will be administered by Community First Fund. I'd be happy at the conclusion of this program to answer any questions that you all might have, and I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Jermaine.
Thanks, Shirley. Next, we'll turn it over to Jackie Parker from the city of Harrisburg.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. It's really, really nice to see so many of you here this evening. It means that you're very interested in finding out about doing business in the city of Harrisburg. You've heard about a variety of projects, either through CRW, through Impact Harrisburg, and the city has a lot of projects that are pending that we'll talk about in a few minutes. We do also want participation, MBE, participation. We have goals, especially for our city projects, all right? We have our LRTA, which is the local economic revitalization tax abatement program. And for new construction, so for new projects that are going to be constructed in the city, there are participation goals. So we want to make sure that we get those goals by encouraging small businesses to participate. And, you know, as you're hearing, there are tools to make sure that you are able to access them. But more importantly, we're also trying to get small business creation and small business growth. This administration came in 4 years ago and created the Small Business Development Department because there hadn't been one. And in that department, we are the portal or the doorway for people to come in and say, hey, I want to start a business. I want to start either a plumbing business, a carpeting business, buy a food truck, open up a nail salon, something like that. And so how do we make sure that all the residents here who want that to be their goal, entrepreneurship, small business development, you know, start something that is of their own creation, how do we get them there so that they can eventually become where you are and participate in larger projects? So what we've been doing is partnering with our partners. We partner with the SCORE, and you're going to be hearing more about that from Charlie White, but we have partners that will help you. We can't help everybody develop their business plan, but but I can't tell you how many people come into my office and say, I have it on the back of a napkin, I'm sure this will work. I said, well, okay, it's great, but you really need to develop that plan to go and get funding, to become more astute at having a business, thinking about all their costs, where are they going to locate, all those kinds of things that new business owners and new business people have to think about. So we've been trying to do that with our partners. As you heard from Sheila, now there's a funding source because the city doesn't lend money. But again, so many people say, I only need a couple $1,000 to start my business. I know I can do it. Well, now there's a fund that's going to be targeted primarily for Harrisburg, only on Harrisburg, for new businesses. So we're very excited about that. So we're very serious about helping our residents attain their business goals, whether you're just starting out, whether you're mid-sized. Some of you I know are already business people, and so we're going to be talking about how you access that next step. But we also want you to know that we're here to help people start right from the bottom when they come in with an idea on the back of a napkin. So, and then Charlie will talk a little bit more about how we are now partnering and how we guide those folks to those partners to make sure that they get everything they need to get that business started. So part of the slide here is about the projects that we have, so that all of you can think about construction projects and how you're going to participate. And Parks and Rec, so we have 5 playgrounds that are now in the process of being rehabilitated. Okay, that's only 5. Some of those bids are out with CRW. We're partnering 5 playgrounds that we've been working on for quite a few years, and now they're going to be done. So some of that has been bid, but some of those parts, like the landscaping pieces, some of the other parts that haven't been addressed, those are going to be going out for bid, probably at the end of this year. Okay? The Harrisburg Transportation Center, there's a study that was just completed about the Transportation Center. Some of that will probably be city-directed if there's new development that's coming in there, but there's all kinds of opportunities that are just getting ready to go. Has not been bid out yet, but again, with that new development coming in, we're going to have participation levels that any new developer coming in, they're going to build something new, they have to reach those goals, okay? The next thing is Mulder Square. That's already started. That's the housing development at Mulberry. The Housing Authority is our partner. Tri-County Housing is our partner, so some of that has been bid. But there's the road work that's coming in. So the road work will be done through the city in 2019. So we know that that's going to be bid, and there'll be participation, whether it's the asphalt, whether it's the ADA ramps, whether it's, again, landscaping, and CRW will have a role in that too with stormwater management, so that will be, those will be coming. The Uptown Housing Project, and again, that's kind of out there, but we have developers who are very interested in building and rehabilitating that area, and they're buying up some properties, so you'll be hearing more about that, again, in partnership with PHFA. And then citywide road construction. So my engineer, I'm not the road person, but the engineer gave me this list of road projects that will be bid in this year and also into next year. So there's Brookwood Street, and that will be on Penn bid this year. That's going to be their road work. 7th and Riley to Her, that will be on Penn bid in 2019. The 2nd Street Forster to Division, probably in 2019. PennDOT will be doing the River Walk in August, so that will be let in August. And also the Hearst Street ADA ramps, that's funded, and that will be released in August of this year. We are now trying something a little bit differently to make sure that everybody gets the word on what's coming out from the city, so that if you get on the list that Charlie will talk about for the city, and you're participating, you get certified at MPWBE, we're going to be sending out these to you every time something comes out. Whether you take it or not, whether you like it, whether it's something that interests you or is in your area, we're going to make sure that if you're on the list, you're going to be getting the solicitation. You can also go on PennBid online, and also the Penn.ECMS. And some of you who go over, will know what that is. So that's the way that we're going to try to make sure that small businesses can participate in these larger projects. And if there's anything else that any of you want to suggest of how you can, you think that there's some things out there that we're missing, some tools that you might be able to use to make sure that you can access these larger projects, you can call me or you can call Charlie. He'll talk about the partnerships that we have. Thank you.
I'm going to hand it over to Charlie, but Jackie said some really key things in there. I think Mel's going to touch on it. One of the things that stuck out to me was her reference of pen bid. And Mel's going to touch on that a little bit, and the importance of checking pen bid as well as checking PennDOT ECMS to see what opportunities are out there. Charlie?
Okay, I'm Charlie White, I'm the alert administrator. I'm also handling the MBE-WB participation for the city of Harrisburg. I'm going to discuss legal structure. I'm not an attorney, so what you really want to do is just research how you're going to set up your business entity. There are 5 common entities that you want to think of when you're establishing your business. That's a partnership, which entails 2 or more individuals, and they're actually coming together and using their resources to create a business. You have a corporation, that involves shareholders, things of that nature, and you have limited liability companies, and you see a lot of those around because those are somewhat easier structurally to set up. And 2, you want to also research for tax liability. So when you're establishing your entity, you want to also check as far as your personal taxes, what you're going to file, and then going into your business taxes, how you're going to file for that. So definitely do research on how you want to set up your actual company. And Jackie mentioned some of our partners, and these places actually offer assistance and training. CREDIC, which is the Capital Regional Economic Development, they have a calendar that lists several events, and they have different resources for diversity development. So you can check their website, and also offer financing for small businesses in this particular area and outside this area. Kutztown University, they also provide free consultation for small businesses. So if you register with them, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll offer mentor programs or somebody that's actually in your field or the scope that you're working on, and they will help you at least partner with them so you can see how they maneuver throughout the actual field. Small Business Administration, they provide assistance with drafting business plans. Typically, when you're establishing your business, you don't come up with a business plan right away. I know I didn't from doing a couple businesses, but once I went out and talked to individuals, that is pretty much the best way to go about establishing your business, because you set goals within that business plan, and a lot of times you don't get to those goals, but at least you're writing it down and it gives you something to work towards instead of just arbitrarily coming up with an idea and then trying to work through it. Also, Susquehanna SCORE, they provide mentoring services, and they also offer educational workshops. So those are just some of the places that we work with, and we also provide referrals to. As far as financing, I think we touched on it a little bit, is the Community First Fund. They assist with obtaining capital and also establishing lines of credit. There's also several small business success stories on there, so you can look on there to receive, at least inspiration. If you feel like your business isn't viable enough to receive credit or receive assistance, just look on there and you can see some of the businesses that actually were established, and that may give you some inspiration to get the things together that you need to. And there's also traditional banks. So when you're setting up your business and you want to go apply for credit, a lot of businesses fall within that small to micro business when they're trying to get loans. So you need to know financially how you're set up in order to request the right loan when you're going into a traditional bank. And then establishing a rapport with that bank, going in, making your deposits on time, making sure that your account isn't in the negative, that will help you establish some type of rapport. And I'm also going to talk about there's filing fees with the city and also some licensing. So when you're doing business with the city, you need a business mercantile license if you're doing business in the city. That doesn't necessarily mean that you reside in the city. It's just you're doing business in the city. You have some applications that are available over there, and it pretty much walks you through the step as far as the information that you need to supply to our mercantile department. If you're a vendor, if you're going out to vendor, say you're doing food services or you're doing a sidewalk operation, there's also a vendor process that you have to go through and an application that you need to complete as well for that. As far as zoning, our code and our zoning department will pretty much walk you through the steps of things that you need in order to have that business established at that location that you determine. So there may be things that, as far as fire protection, you're selling food out of there, there are certain things that you need in order for that business to actually be set up and, so you can open that location. And also, if you're selling food, you need a health license. So anybody that plans to sell food or drinks, you must obtain a health license within there too.
All right, so one of the most important pieces is certification. How do we find you? When Jackie talked about the projects coming out, I talked about our projects coming out, and the certification for minority-owned, women-owned businesses is key because it helps us find you, it helps the prime contractors find you, and then it also helps your work count towards the participation levels or goals or whatever you want to word it to count minority-owned, women-owned business. So Mr. John Dunlap is going to talk about the certification process.
Thank you. Good evening. Good to see so many here today. The next few minutes we're going to talk about certification. Certification can be confusing. So many acronyms now. You have DBEs, you have MBEs, you have WBEs, you have small businesses. And so where does certification fit in this scheme of things? First of all, what is certification? Certification is documentation that your company has met certain standards that are required to be certified as a minority, woman, or disadvantaged business enterprise. Now, the one thing we noticed by our attendance list is that there were a lot of companies, over 20 companies, that listed themselves on that listing as being minority, women, or disadvantaged business. And we cannot find those companies on the many lists that we had. And I know we've been doing this business for over 30 years, and a lot of companies we never heard of. So you have to appreciate this. If you are a person of color, if you're a woman, or a disadvantaged individual that owns a business, those requirements alone does not qualify you to be a certified minority, woman, or disadvantaged business enterprise. You must submit an application to an approved certifying agency, at which time they will send you back confirmation in writing showing that now you are certified. Now, Capital Region Water is not a certifying agency, but they do accept the certifications of all of the certification agencies that you see on this board. And when you look at these certifying agencies, you find that you have state, you have federal, and you have private certifying entities. Now, these entities are all independent. They're all independent, and the processes may be somewhat different. But there are several prerequisites or requirements that you must meet to be certified by almost anyone. Number one is that your business must be a profit-making entity. That means if you're a 501c3 or some other type of nonprofit company, you do not qualify to be certified. In addition to that, your company, the owners of your company must be at least 51% owner and have control of the company. You have to make sure that that is very evident in your application. In addition to that, your company must be socially and economically disadvantaged. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's illustrate it this way. Let's say if LeBron James came to Harrisburg and he wanted to start a minority-owned business, a construction business, and he, being the principal, applied for certification, he would be denied. Because you see, LeBron James is not economically disadvantaged. The program is designed to protect against those individuals who have a lot of money, that may be minorities, that may be women, and may be disadvantaged people. It's not for those very, very wealthy individuals. Now, your certification also must be trade specific. And what that means is if you're certified as a minority-owned business, you just can't do anything. You are only certified to perform in the trades that you've been certified to perform in. Now, I have here in my hand, I know you can't see it, so I'm just going to sort of read off of it. This is the NMSDC certification certificate that you get. They give out certifications, PAUCP or PennDOT. They give out letters. But the one thing that's consistent on these certification letters and certificates is they'll have your name, and they'll also have a certification number that's assigned to you. Be careful with your numbers, simply because sometimes people use your numbers and you don't even know it. But they have the certification number on here. They have the date that you were certified, the date that it expired, and the codes in which you are to perform. These codes are called North American Industry Classification System. And these are codes that are used all over the country in order to identify what you're doing. If you're performing in a business that requires a license, the owner of that company must have that license. Let's use plumbing as an example. If you are a plumbing business, the owner of that company must be a certified plumber. Because you see, you have to be a certified plumber to pull the permit. And if you can't pull the permit, then you're really not controlling that business. And if it comes down to you rolling up your sleeves and doing some plumbing, you have the credentials and can legally do that work because of your status. So these certification codes that we're talking about here, they're very important. You have to, when you put your application in, make sure you identify very clearly the trades in which you would like to be certified in, that you have the expertise to perform. And that's critical. Now, the things that we do, and Rhonda will get on this a little bit, we send out referral lists. Contractors, it's incumbent upon them to find the certified minorities, women's, and DBEs that they have. But they'll come to us, and as a courtesy, we'll send them a referral list. If you are not certified, then you will never show up on that list. Now, this is an FYI for your information. You have all these certifying agencies, and you might ask, well, do I need them all? Or which one should I pursue? Well, the one that's probably most difficult to get is the SBA, but it's recognized by everybody. The second one, probably most hard to get, that is recognized by everyone, is the PAUCP. Now, there was a time when if you were a minority or a woman, you knew it was state certification. But now that word DBE has crept into every aspect of certification. So let's say you're certified DBE by a private certifying entity, and a job comes out for PennDOT. PennDOT has no reciprocity with anybody else. In other words, your DBE certification with anyone else, whether it's state, whether it's city, whether it's private, is invalid when it comes to PAUCP contracts. Those are federal contracts. And I say that to tell you this. If you have a certification with the MNSDC or one of these other groups and you don't have a federal, you might want to pursue that also. That way it covers all the bases. So certainly certification is important. Any questions you have about our involvement with the process, we'll take when you have the open comment. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Again, that's a very key piece because, as you mentioned, we send lists out to prime contractors. We reach out to people, and if we can't find you, we can't send you out, send your information out. I'm now going to pass it off to Mel Johnson, and he's going to talk a little bit about getting ready to succeed.
Thank you, Tremaine. My name is Mel Johnson. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
What is this diversity thing? We hear that name and we wonder how it impacts on us. How many people here get the Central Pennsylvania Business Journal. In the March 2nd edition, March 2nd of this year, diversity seemed to improve bottom line. Just going to read how it starts off. A successful diversity and inclusion strategy can help business performance in many ways. Research has proven that companies with more diversity perform better financially. According to a report by McKinsey & Company in its January 2018 publication, Delivering Through Diversity, companies in the top quintile for gender diversity on executive teams were 21% more likely to outperform on profitability and 27% more likely to have superior value creation. Companies in the top quintile for ethnic, cultural diversity on executive teams were 33% more likely to have industry-leading profitability. Equally as compelling, the data revealed that not being diverse can hurt a company's performance. So what's your plan? What is your plan for being a part of the onslaught for diversity? Because it's all about profit. It's about profit, folks. So what is your plan? How is it, and how is your plan directed toward putting you in the framework? Because if you're in business, you're in business to make a profit. If you're in business for any other reason, you don't need to be in business. Absolutely. And so that's very important, because if you're in business for a profit, you have to make sure from day one that once you step out as an independent business person, the bottom line is at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, you have a profit ratio in mind. And that depends on a lot of things. One of the things that I have meticulously said to people is, you never take a contract that is less than your estimated bid. But you have to have confidence in your bid. If you don't have confidence in your bid, you should not bid that contract. And it has happened, and then we get into difficulty and we default, or we have difficulty and we wonder why. So, making a profit is key. And part of that is team building. You have to have skilled staff. You have to know who you're working with. You have to know what they are going to produce for you on a day-to-day basis. So you have to be key in not only knowing your skills, but evaluate the skills of others. Do I have the available resources, office, field, estimators, and capital? I already spoke about that. All of these things need to be in order. Can I bid on a construction project as a prime or as a subcontractor? Can I really be competitive based on the equipment and the staff that I have? Well, the M.T. Johnson Group is supposed to be and is a consultant, but we're not an outside consultant. We work on the inside as well as the outside. So, what is your road to success? Your road to success is when you're bidding a contract, bid to every prime That's bidding. Bid to everyone. You will be getting, excuse me, you will be getting a resource list from us with the names of the primes. You can go on pin bid. But we send out your name, if you're on our listing, our certified listing, to all of the primes. You don't know who will be the low bidder. And we will be in the process to evaluate the bids. If you in fact bid and the primes are required to submit to us who bid, what MBEs, DBEs, WBEs bid, and their bidding price, and you know, oh, they were a low bidder, and you bid with them. When they come back to you and say, well, you know, you're a good guy, I like you, but your price is a little high, if you could drop it by 5,000 or whatnot, you might want to send them packing, because you will have confidence in your bid before you bid. And if you are giving away your profit, you will not be successful. If you want to send us a copy of your bid, that's fine. Send it to Tremaine or myself. We will put that in the evaluation. If they in fact submit to us data that you've submitted that is incorrect, they may be submitting false and misleading information. That could be a bid violation. So there are safeguards to help you become successful. It does start with you. You do have to have a plan, but we will be there to help. We will be checking with you to do bid verifications. We want to ensure that what we are receiving in the bids is accurate. So please, 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 don't get huffy when we call you to verify or to ask you to send copies of your documents to us based on a certain bid that you recently bid. We're only trying to make sure that the system works properly. It's geared to assist you in your success plan. So your plan should include working with us. Tremaine mentioned that there were resources. Yes, the state resource, if you're certified with PennDOT or General Services, if you're sitting down with primes that you've located on PennBid, use those contacts and use those connections. They should be an intricate part of your success plan. And if you listen to the other things here today, the help that's available to help you with your plan, I'm sure that working with the entities here today, Impact Harrisburg, City of Harrisburg, and Capital Region Water, together we can be successful. We are trying to move the ship forward, but we need you. We need you. Okay?
So as Mel mentioned, the evaluation process, working to protect you, that requires some administration, which can be tedious at times, especially if you're a small shop. But Rhonda Mays is going to explain the importance of the administrative side of running your business.
Good evening. As Jermaine said, administrative and requirements and paperwork is always everyone's favorite part, but it's necessary. Or actually, I know it's not everyone's favorite part, but still it's necessary. So, and after you receive your contract, you're going to be required to submit a monthly report. And the purpose of the report is so that everyone is on the same page, the prime contractor and the MWDBE, so that you know that the payments that you should have received that month through your invoicing is correct, that you're being paid as a subcontractor in a timely manner, and that you're in agreement with the percentage of work that was completed, the total cost that you're to be paid, and how much you're to be paid that month and to date. So that report is going to let CRW know that you and the prime contractor are both on the same page as far as your invoicing and how much you're going to, how much you are owed that month. And the reports are due at the end of the month, after the last day of each month. So, for instance, take March, for example, the work that you did between March 1st and March 31st, you would submit that report in April. And the reports aren't difficult. You know, paperwork is always a pain, no matter how easy it is, but CRW put a lot of effort into making sure that the report is easy to use and shouldn't cause you too much stress. But we are asking that the contractor, the MWDBE, fill out the paperwork. Don't leave that to the prime contractor. It's your responsibility as a subcontractor to complete that report each month and submit that. You can submit it to the prime contractor if you'd like, and the prime contractor will forward it to CRW. But make sure that you as the subcontractors, the MWDBE, personally fills out the report, signs it, dates it, and submits it. And when you send it off to the prime, make sure that you do it in a timely manner, probably within the first week of the month, in order to allow the prime contractor, who already also has to send their report, so that they're not late also. So just remember that these reports are not optional. They are mandatory. We expect them each and every month. But if you're having any trouble filling them out, if you need any assistance, feel free to contact us. Feel free to contact Tremaine, and we will definitely give you assistance with that. Next, we're going to be talking about your contact information. Contact information it's vitally important to have that correct. Whether you're talking about your website, your business card, you know, when you're certified, if you're certified now, all of your information and your that you submitted to your certifying agency, all of that has to be very much up to date. If your company moved, if you changed your phone number, make sure that all of that is changed on your profile, on your contact information. And the NAICS codes, we can get to that briefly. John talked about NAICS codes pretty thoroughly, I think, but when CRW is identifying minority and women and disadvantaged contractors, we use the NAICS codes and the certifying agency also. So first you have to be certified, then you also have to have your NAICS code. So for instance, if you're a masonry contractor, well, pipe ready. Oh, that's okay. But if you're a masonry contractor, but you feel so you have experience doing demolition, and this is fine. You know, and the prime contractor is looking for someone one of the sections to do demolition. Just because you're a contractor that has experience in demolition, if you're not certified, if we don't see that NAICS code there that says that you can also do demolition, we're not going to pick you up. So just remember that your NAICS code has to correspond with the work that we're looking for when we're identifying contractors. So this is a really good example that we found to show you what we're looking for. As far as enhanced searches are concerned, the more areas that you're certified in, the better, your chances of being found on any one of our projects. Our projects usually have quite a few sections to them, and each one of them can have one NAICS code that we're looking for, multiple NAICS codes. So, the more areas that you're certified in, and if you're a small contractor, you just started, you may not have all of these NAICS codes, but as you have more experience and you go on, make sure that you add that to your profile. Make sure that, we're able to see exactly what you're doing. And also in the work description area, and this is an area where I think, from my experience when I've been identifying businesses, that people aren't as thorough as we would like to see sometimes. So don't be shy about listing everything that your company does. Really sit down and think about all of the roles that you perform, and make sure that, in this case, it's PAUCP, that it's all listed. If you're a supplier, list everything that you supply. The contracting work that you do, make sure that that's all listed out there too. So, the more specific you are about your roles and what your company is able to perform, then the greater the chance that we'll be able to identify it.
So Rhonda made some really good points. As you can see, this is an example of the PAUCP, their search engine. So if we're looking for a contractor, say we're looking for someone who does heavy projects, we could put in search words that say heavy projects, and this firm will come up. Or how Rhonda and John both said, these NAICS codes, these are all different practices that company is sufficient in. So we could look for any of these codes, and this company is going to come up. But most importantly, when she said profile administration, making sure your stuff is accurate, you don't know how many times I'll look at a company on this website, a company on a DGS website, and a person, the same company, that might have called me on my cell phone, and there's 3 different phone numbers, 3 different email addresses, and 3 different addresses. And I'll know that because I just talked to the person on the phone and I know where they're located at. But if someone's looking for you, they'll never know that. So if you change your phone number, if you change your email address, I would make it practice to go out and change your email address, change your phone number on every profile that you have, so that when people are looking for you, they can find you. All right, so we're going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's our last speaker. He's going to talk about some of the best practices.
I'm not going to say good evening to everybody. I guess that was getting a little old by now. Jermaine put me at the end so he could tell me to hurry up for the last couple minutes. I appreciate that. My name's Jeff Lawrence. For 7 years, I owned a mechanical contracting firm, and so I've been in a position where a lot of the MWBE and DBE contractors have been, and having to play the game and having to fight, and kind of, I know sometimes the deck is kind of stacked against us. And I think there's a couple things that I really took away at the end of when I sold my shares to my partner. When I walked away from the business, I really felt like, the last year we did almost $6 million, which is a pretty good sized company. We had 26 employees. We started with only me and my sister. So what I took away was that the relationships that we built were where we got the business from. And probably 85% of the jobs that I bid were not that had no minority participation mandate on it. So the jobs that I got were based on relationships that I had built, and it was, you know, it's uncomfortable sometimes. You go into unknown areas, you're going in places where people don't look like you. You know, I use Associated Builders and Contractors as an example all the time for, I walked into the room and it's a bunch of middle-aged white men and me. And so, you know, I had to certainly get outside my comfort zone to get involved with some of these people. And if I wanted to, you know, my grandfather used to tell me, when I wanted something as bad as I wanted to breathe, then I would get it. So everybody wants to say, oh, I want to get this business, I need to get this business. Well, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want, is the question that I would ask of, not only from the MWBE community, but also from the primes too, because we have to, as a prime contractor, you have to look at these MWBEs as somebody who can come in and be a part of your team. And we're never getting anywhere until we start, all the walls got to come down. And I know that's easier said than done, because believe me, I've seen it on both sides. Everybody has to be willing to work towards that goal. And so if you want something, you have to be willing to sacrifice something to get to it. So going into some of the stuff that's on the slides here, you know, getting to know the estimators is a big thing. You know, if you're a M or W or DBE, and I hate that they call it a DBE. I don't like that. The disadvantaged business. I don't want a disadvantaged heart surgeon operating on me. You know, I don't want a disadvantaged mechanic fixing my transmission. So I apologize. That's my little soapbox, but I don't like that. So the first things first is, in order to get the jobs, you have to understand who are the people bidding the jobs. Get to know the estimators. And part of that is, you know, it might be uncomfortable. You might not know any estimators at Reynolds or Pyramid or any of these prime contractors that are bidding. But you got to reach out and you got to say, hey, you know, call them up. Call over to the company. Find out when their weekly estimator is. Find out who the senior estimator is. How can I get an opportunity to stop by and introduce you? I'm interested in bidding your projects. Can I stop by for 5 minutes and give you my card? I'd like to get your information so I can get on your bid list. You got to start out. People aren't just going to call you and ask you to do it. You've got to go and take the initiative to get there. And hey, listen, if they don't want you to come over, they don't have time, stop over with a couple donuts. I ain't nobody kicking you out when you come with donuts. You know, listen, it sounds funny, but it's true. You go somewhere with some food and they're letting you in the door, you know? So go and get in front of these people and then you ask them a simple question. If you were me, what would you do to get an opportunity? What would you do to give me the blueprint of how I can get business with you? How do I win a bid? How do I successfully win a bid? You know? And some people are going to tell you to get out. They don't even want you there. You ain't getting no bid. Okay. Go to the next company. You know? You have to put yourself in that uncomfortable position. The association memberships, I think, are where I had my most success. And again, like I said, it isn't always easy because when you go to a lot of these associations, it looks awfully cliquey. It looks like everybody knows somebody else but you. Everybody got a conversation and you feel like, hey, I'm going up, I'm interrupting their conversation. You know, they don't really have time for me. Go and talk to them. Introduce yourself. Give them your card. You know, some of the local, you know, associations, and there's a ton of different ones. I mentioned Associated Builders and Contractors, but the American Subcontractors Association, there's always people from the primes at the ASA meetings. There's always people from the primes at the Associated Builders and Contractors. There's, you know, SHRM groups, Chambers of Commerce, Pennsylvania Builders Exchange. You got to get involved with that stuff. And you know, everybody has a job and you got to work your full-time job and you got to get your hours in the regular day. And then, oh, I'm tired, I got to go home. And I get it. I have 2 sons and my wife, and, you know, she's not always happy whenever I'm out here till 8:30 with Tremaine doing this stuff. But honestly, you have to go out and put your face in front of people. And you start giving people the perception that you're everywhere all the time. That perception becomes reality. And if people keep seeing you and they keep seeing you, keep asking them, you keep asking them, they might just give you some business because you're annoying them. They might just give you some business to get you to stop calling them. I never cared. If you were giving me the business and I was getting it at the margins I was going to get it at, I'm taking it. I'm happy to have it. Thank you very much. Make sure you pay me on time, please. So it's important to get involved in these associations for the networking. And also there's some training and some different things that you can get. And part of that, it goes to what Mel was saying about the estimators. I think the estimators are the backbone of your company. They can make or break it. If they're bidding it too high, you're never going to get the job. If they're bidding it too low, you're going to lose money on the job. So you got to figure out, you know, do you have the right person estimating for you? You have to, your estimators have to understand how to do it. For me, I was not an estimator. You know, what I learned was, if you go out and spend $10,000 for this estimating license, they'll give you this really cool digitizer and this little pen that you put on the paper where the blueprint is, and it starts where one part of the ductwork is, and you run it to the other end. and it tells me how many feet of ductwork it is that I gotta buy and how long it should take my guys to install it. It was expensive, but we bought it, and that was how we learned how to estimate. But we knew that we had a good number when we went to bid. We knew what our numbers were. So I jumped around a little bit about that because of the estimator, because I didn't want to forget. It was something that Mel said that really stuck with me. That estimating piece of the puzzle is a huge deal. So make sure that you have a legitimate person, somebody that has some experience in doing that, so you do know that your numbers are good. The networking events kind of goes to the same thing with the association memberships. Just get out and make yourself seen. I was always, I don't know, people used to ask me that all the time, well, why are you in Reading, and then you're in Carlisle, and then you're over here, now you're in Harrisburg. I wanted business. I wanted it bad, and I really honestly was going to figure out a way to get it one way or the other. So when I was growing up, my dad had passed away when I was young. My mom worked 2 jobs, for as long as I could ever remember. And my sister and I, we always used to talk about what we were going to do. And I remember saying, to my sister at one point, I don't really care what I have to do. Like, I was ready to start robbing banks, and not that I condone that. Not what I'm saying. But I was going to do whatever I had to do to make money for my family. And I certainly wasn't going to let my kids grow up and have the same thing that happened to me happen to them. So that was where my motivation came from, where I would always go back to, whenever I was getting rejected, or whenever I'd just done a job and it was a $2 million duck job, and I'm off the job for 18 months, and they're still owing me $200,000 in retention, and I still haven't gotten it, and I'm going and I'm asking people to pay me. That's difficult. You're banging your head on the wall. I started my company so I could spend more time with my kids, and then I'm spending more time in my company than I was at my previous job. So again, talking about that sacrifice, what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? These pre-bid meetings are huge, and I know they're not all mandatory, but the more pre-bid meetings you go to is the same exact thing as going to these networking events. And you keep seeing the primes, and when you see the primes there, hey, listen, do you have a card? Can I get your card? Would you mind if I gave you a call a little bit later? I'd like to stop over and meet with you if you had 5 or 10 minutes sometime next week. It's a great way to make it not a cold call. If you're already at the pre-bid meeting, you got the pre-bid. Tremaine has done a real good job about sending out the list also of everybody that's at these. A lot of times they have emails, they have phone numbers, and things like that. And again, the ball is in your court to reach out. People aren't just going to start coming handing you work simply because you're M or W or DBE. So if that's your thought process, you have to change that, or else if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. So if you want to change that, then you got to make that change for yourself. Name recognition and awareness, that's your brand. If you, what was the example that we used? If you're a painting company, don't call yourself Johnny Joe's Global Logistics. If you're a painting company, call yourself something that has the name painting in it. If you're a construction company, call yourself something that has construction in it. Your brand is specifically that. And again, that's part of all you go into these meetings, and and every time you go out and you hand out your card and you meet with people, and every time when you introduce yourself, I'm Jeff Lawrence with Forefront Construction. You say your name, you say what your business is. Make sure that people understand who you are and what you do. Go to the next slide. Which brings me right to the capability statement. You put that together pretty good. Gotcha. Appreciate that. That's good. Yeah, I work pretty good. But the capability statement is, simply just something that tells people what your service offerings are. And when I first started my company, we didn't have a bunch of whatever. I don't know who knows what this extra money is. We didn't have any of that. So when I started my company, I basically put a capability statement together on my letterhead. I didn't have money to get marketing material. I didn't have that kind of thing. So I put my capability statement on my own letterhead, and probably was a little bit cheesy at first going out with that, but that's what I had. So I went out with my information, I gave it to people, and I asked them, how do I get an opportunity with you? You need to have something that shows what your company does. And also if you have, some sort of, a portfolio maybe of work that you've done to include with that. So obviously if you're just going and starting up new, you don't have a bunch of credentials or past work that you can give these people you're trying to get in. Being a subcontractor, I love it not just because you're an M, W, or DBE. Subcontractor first, and the other designation second. Having that M or WBE or DBE certification is kind of like the gravy on the potatoes or the icing on the cake or whatever you want to call it. But whenever primes are looking out for people to do jobs, they're looking for 2 things. They want the job done on schedule, and they want it done within their budget. Those are the 2 things that they want at the end of the day. If you can't do those 2 things, you're not going to get a whole bunch of opportunities. So you got to think about what they're looking at. How do you get in front of them? How do you show them that you're going to want this job. Well, it's not because I want you to hand it to me because I'm an MBE. I want it because I'm going to come in, I'm going to do a good job. And I have some people that are good people that work with me, and we're going to come, and if we make a mistake, we'll own it. And we will make mistakes. I guarantee to everybody all the time we make mistakes. I'm great at it. So, you know, if you aren't willing to, if you're really only in this and you're saying, hey, well, I'm going to be an M or a WBE or a DBE because I know there's mandates and I'm going to get business, you may get some business, but you're not going to get a bunch of business. You're not going to build a successful business off of that. And like I said, in my company that I had in 7 years, I would say honestly, 85 to 90% of my contracts had no minority mandate on it. So the opportunity is there, it is real, and it just, I think kind of some of it is, you're going into, you know, when you go to a foreign country, do you think everybody's going to stop and start speaking English to you? That's the same deal with this environment that we're in, where the primes have a culture, and I'm not saying that it's right or that it's wrong, but the thing is, you're going into their basketball court, in their arena that's in the property that they own. So you got to play by their rules, you know? If you're not willing to do that, then I don't really know how much you really want the things that you say that you might want in starting your own business. Line item bidding goes back to the estimator thing, and that was, you know, something I talked about before that Mel had mentioned. You have to understand what you're bidding. You have to also be able to make sure that you have exclusions in your bid for things that you're not going to cover. You know, if there's a certain thing, and I know with Wilson's Plumbing, you know, maybe when you're doing your underground work, maybe you're excluding the concrete and saw cutting. Maybe that's not something that you do, so you exclude that in your bid, and now you're not responsible for it. Be smart enough to know you're not that smart, okay? Responsiveness, again, I think some of that, this is common sense. Obviously, if you're out and you're bidding jobs, if you're trying to get in front of people, you have to make yourself available. You have to be accessible, answer your phone, and I know it might be, you know, 7 o'clock at night and you might be at home with your family, but when you're a small business owner, you're wearing all your hats all the time. So it's important for you to be available. That's part of that perception that you're going to get from the people that's out there. End of the day, perception is reality. However people perceive you is how you are. And that's a fact. Being proactive and not reactive, again, it's just the same thing that we've talked about. You build the relationships, you get in front of these people. Don't sit back and wait for them to come to you. Go to them. That's all I have. Thanks for your time, guys.
And if you have any questions for anybody up here on the panel, now's your time. Carl?
Yes, all right, so Carl Singleton, former senior advisor to the mayor, Impact Harrisburg, all that good stuff. So my question goes back to whenever we have meetings like this, it's always as if the black and brown and women-owned businesses are talked to as if we intentionally go in handicapped. No one addresses institutionalized racism. Nobody interjects anything dealing with what can the owners of the projects do when the predominantly white companies exercise their racist acts in our communities. What are you all going to do as the city? Oh, I can answer for the city. I can answer for Impact Harrisburg. But in terms of this group that CRW has hired, how much teeth do you have and political courage and will are you guys coming to the table with? So when these traditional racist, predominantly white male-run companies start to run us in the ground, what are you guys prepared to do? That's question number one. The other piece is, you talk about going out and meet. We heard specific language when we sit here and our communities are being addressed, and we talk about how we got to go out and meet, and we have to go out and build relationships and do whatever they want to do. With newsflash, they should be doing, because a lot of these contracts have public dollars associated with them, they should be doing what we, as the owners of the projects, tell them to do. So for example, Impact Harrisburg, we can't make you take our money, but we can make you meet that 38% threshold. That's the floor, not the ceiling. If your racist acts tell you you don't want the money because you don't want to hire local black, brown, and women-owned businesses, then you expose yourself. That's something that could be done across the board. We cannot continue to send people into the lion's den talking about shake hands with closed fists. It's not going to happen that way. One thing that we've interjected into this community is the Pennsylvania Diversity Coalition. And what we do is we make sure we go out, we're a bunch of nonprofit and for-profit businesses at every sector that you could possibly think of, from education to contracting, name it. What we do is we dare one of these companies to come in and try to just run roughshod over this community with predominantly white people on their jobs without hiring anybody local. And we go, we will boycott you. We will protest. We will call you out. We will go back to the owners, back to your boards, and ask, what are you guys going to do? You control the purse strings. So even if they don't want to play the game, you guys can hold the checks. City council is represented here. We can talk a good damn game, but until we start pulling back on the money, until we are intentional, until we put the scoring sheet that we've done out of the administration when I was there and others, Jackie and others, they don't have to agree to hire minority women-owned businesses. But when you state that you want the lowest responsible bidder, when you put a scoring sheet in there, and 5 of those 20 points are represented by hiring and engaging minority women-owned businesses, they may only get 15 out of 20. That's legal. I'll be quiet in a second, but I can't sit through these meetings anymore and listen to what we're not doing as opposed to addressing the institutionalized racism, things that have prevented businesses and the redlining and the banks not loaning and all that stuff, prevented businesses, quite frankly, from being successful and building capacity. So I would think that Capital Region Water, the city, and Impact Harrisburg, we have hundreds of $1 million at our disposal right now, especially over the next 20 years, to prepare businesses to grow, to be able to take care of those opportunities. What about Capital Region Water? When they're not paid on time, what are you guys prepared to do with your organization as a board and with your consultants out there? What are we willing to, I'm interested in Mr. Lawrence. We talk about you're no longer in business. I'll be curious to know why you're not in business anymore. When we talk about, I'll stop there.
Is there a question in there?
Yeah, the one was definitely why was he go out of business?
I didn't go out of business, I sold my business, first of all. Secondly, the reason why I'm not in business was because I was spending more time in my business and making less money as a business owner than I was able to make in doing the work that I currently do.
That's all fine and great. And that conversation can be had, somewhere else. Question?
Just to piggyback on what he's saying, just a little. I've been in the area and I've been in business for 15 years. Okay, as a plumbing company, what I found when you start asking for inclusion on some of these larger projects, Jackson Lake Towers for one, some of the housing authority projects for others, is us as minority companies, we end up getting offers through the MBE participation programs and things like that. But what we end up getting is the, how can I say it, hardest part of the job for the cheapest possible dollar.
That goes back to what Mel says.
That goes back to what Mel says, yeah. But at the same time, when you put so many resources into bidding, you're estimating costs, you have a company to run overhead, the whole nine, you have to work. I mean, you can't spend constantly bidding jobs and then end up,
Absolutely.
So you eventually have to take something. So, but just to touch base with what ended up happening with me, for instance, is after going through that process and actually completing 3 or 4 jobs for some of the larger plumbing firms in the area, I found that it was just easier not to even bother and just stay small, because trying to get to that certain level, once you get to a certain level in this area, it is so hard to go to that next step, as I'm sure Lawrence can explain to you, because you don't have the capital, you don't have the backing, you don't have the support of the city, and finding trained personnel is another nature. You know what I mean? So being able to get qualified employees and be able to pay them what they're worth with very little working capital is a problem for small MDEs and disadvantaged businesses. So, at this, that's just my view on it.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe that.
I would really like to get beyond participation levels being a part of the contract. I'd like to see local legislation by the city council that says any contracts let within this jurisdiction will have to meet this level. And if we can have some legislation instead of having a level where we have to go
and spend hours evaluating these contracts, calling and checking. It would be much more definitive, and we'd have a measure to say, okay, you haven't gotten here, your contract is null and void. And so that would help a great deal. We have not seen the willingness on the part of legislative bodies to do that.
Well, that goes back again, to some of the bigger companies, bigger firms, they lobby these things. And just for you, this is the first I've met you tonight, but just going forward and you're getting into this, like I said, I've been around for 14 years.
I've been in it for a while.
Okay, but I'm just saying that there are loopholes that are still there for us. I mean, for those companies to get around, including us.
I see it every day. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I've been called and says, hey, yeah, we want your participation in this. How about we buy this equipment, use your name,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And then we'll kick you a check. But we don't want boots on the ground, but, we'll give you a check and you just buy the stuff for us.
Exactly, pass it through.
You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
So there's just a lot of things to look out for, when you start getting into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, believe me, I know all too well, about some of those issues. And, myself as well as other folks are working to address that, whether it's coming from the funding sources,
Right.
whether it's coming from, some of the overseeing authorities that kind of control how we operate. Yeah, we're addressing that. I know that the Commonwealth of PA right now, they're doing a disparity study statewide. And again, it may not impact locally and what we can do locally, but I think there's going to be lessons learned there that we can look at and that we can pull out and try to apply at a local level. So, it's, again, yeah, everything you said is true, and those concerns are valid, but just know that, obviously, we got to fight that on both ends. We got to fight that on both ends, because when we're putting projects out for bid and someone says, I can't find any MBEs who are certified, then we have to address that as well. We got to make sure that the pool is there so that we can prove that we're ready, willing, able to serve.
That's understandable. Just real quick though, just one more quick thing. You mentioned about a limit of where you, as Capital Region Water, their bids start out, they put out projects and a bid number was
It was $20,100. Yeah.
Okay, who decides on who gets the contracts for those bids under that $20,100?
The chances of us doing a construction project under $20,000 is slim to none. So, but if we ever were to do a project under $20,000, then we could do that internally and pretty much pick and choose who we want to. Obviously, we would get
I want to
those.
make sure you get my card.
Right, absolutely, yeah. But the chances of us, and that's just the municipal authorities that public bidding threshold.
I'll take that.
I'm wondering, going back to what he was saying, as far as if contractors repeatedly, and this is kind of in general, if they fail to follow through on the soliciting MBEs and WBEs and DBEs, or they are misleading in how they say that they solicited, or could there be a penalty other than not getting the bid? If they do this time after time, I'm just wondering, because that would be a deterrent to them just saying, yeah, we made these, we did the work when they actually didn't.
If a bid is rejected for being not responsible or not responsive, that contractor has to live with that, and they have to report that. So that's big to those prime contractors if they were found to provide false or misleading information or whatever it may be, and their bid was rejected. So you saying, and something other than that, they have to report that moving forward, and it ultimately hurts them a lot. So, it's not just as simple as saying your bid's rejected just this time around. That they have to report that moving forward, and every time they get a project, that piece is
Every
reviewed.
time they, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And not only with us moving, any public project that they're looking at, they'll have to, one of the questions is, have you ever been rejected? They have to answer yes to that. And, then obviously that raises eyebrows and it sticks with them for a while.
Hey, Jermaine.
I'd like to piggyback off of what Mr. Singleton said. I've seen everybody's questions got answered, but there's, what the people that's in there, the executives, the city council, they're in there, they should be able to answer some of these questions, because I'm interested in some of the answers that he's looking for also. But everybody, just went to the next and,
It's not those questions were avoided. I think we had that conversation at another location.
It's on tape, right?
I don't care about the
All right,
tape.
okay.
But I think the purpose of this is to try to figure out where we go and how we move forward and what we want to do to move forward. Now, I'll gladly speak to anybody, about all the past history and the problems and the issues that we faced in the past and how we're addressing it moving forward. I'll gladly have that conversation. But I think the purpose of this meeting and the purpose of this workshop is to look at how we move forward. So, I think you had a question.
I have a question. I'm a small contractor. I'm still doing city work. I do a lead abatement program with the city for probably maybe 6 years. And I kind of understand what Jeff was saying, how he started and stuff. And this is probably like a couple meetings I've been with the Prime and stuff. Everything is good, but what I see is how can small companies like us, like his company, where instead of like having a lot of bid, a lot of construction, where either the city or the state can you say, okay, you're a construction company, you're a painting company, there's like a lot of projects going on. I just want to ask, is there a way where we can have some kind of funding where you go, okay, help train you guys so then you guys can go in and have experience in this kind of work. So when I look at that listing of construction, I'm like, whoa, that's
Right.
It's still big. It's even for the subcontractors, they're big subcontractors. So when you're talking about a small company like us who wants to get our foot in the door, we need training.
Right, absolutely.
You know,
That's
not only that,
yeah.
we need to be able to find that core, excuse me, I forgot your name, ma'am.
Jack.
Ms. Jack?
Jack, yeah.
Well, there's a core group of young people here in this city, okay? There are I really don't see many opportunities for them to learn the plumbing trade, which is something they can learn to feed their families for life. I don't see a large participation in them learning how to do HVAC work, which is something that they can learn to feed their families. Now, we can go out and hire them and get them a job on one of these projects that they sub to us and get them to work for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. But then after that, what? So when I started this business, I didn't see many black plumbers. My goal when I started this business 14 years ago was to be that black plumber in the street on that backhoe, digging that hole, and them kids riding by on their school bus can see that, hey, I can do that. But you don't see that, because you ask these kids now, they don't even know that they can do that. That's possible for them. You know what I mean? So there's so many young kids, I'd say from the 18 to 25, that there should be some sort of opportunity for them to get some training. He has a great program that he's starting at the hub. It's still getting his foot off the ground, but
I just still see, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's the hardest. That's the hardest.
Is the training,
It's
capacity building.
we can say all this, everything is
But
good.
the capacity is
Training for the small
You
company.
can't train nobody to do the work. If I'm a master plumber and I still got to go out and do the work myself, what good is it to have, you know what I mean?
Can I ask, where did you get trained? Where'd you get your training?
I started digging holes for the city of Harrisburg. I worked for the Water Bureau. And then I worked for Roto-Rooter. And then I worked for George Boyers and McClure. And then I tested. And I just worked. And then I tested. And then I worked. And
So you have a good point, you have a good point. You kind of similar, but a little bit different. So you're already working, you already have a lead-based paint
Company, yeah. It
right?
just took a
But you
while.
want to get to that next level. So what we've been talking about, and I think we had it on one of our slides, is that we intend to have another workshop where we get the primes in to talk to the smaller guys to say, look, you know, here's networking, but also how do you get to that next level, and what is it that you need? And I think somebody had said, you know, you said, you know, sometimes you don't have the money to get the supplies, and sometimes you're working and you're doing other things. So is there some way to work with the prime to get you to that level, to work with them? So we are going to be doing that so you can get to that level. As far as the training for young people, you are absolutely right, and we've been trying to work with the unions, we've been trying to work with HAC and other training facilities to get, and the school district, to try to get those very good, skills, trade skills out there so that the kids can, take advantage of that. So, we'll keep you in the loop on that one, so you can help train too.
There's also different certification programs out there. I mean, you have, DOT has certification for concrete. So there's certain ways that you can kind of get to that level of a different certification. You just have to research and go ahead.
What we're doing at CRW is we're looking at some of the various training programs that's out there. And, John and I, we bounce this off of each other all the time. But we're looking at some of the various training programs. Yeah, who's going to show me how to go 18 feet and fix a pipe, right? Never done that before. So who's going to show me how to do that? So we're looking at various training programs to present and bring out. And that's one of the steps that we're going to be looking at in this year, with hopefully, a list of training programs, capacity building programs that can, where you could get some of that hands-on training to go out there, whether it's on a structured project or something, set aside where you could get some of that hands-on training to show you how to do the work that you were talking about. So that is, in our, something that we're looking to do in 2018. John?
Jermaine, we also spoke about the OJT program we're looking at, and
Right.
also the Mentor Protege program we're looking at for this industry. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what so we're constantly discussing and hope, and with hopes to have a program real soon that can reach out, get some small contractors and show them how to do the work, get them prepared, acquire whatever certifications or licenses that they need so that they, are better equipped to go out and do that work.
So I had a question for CRW, and that was for people who do interior work, mainly framing, hanging, finishing, painting, things of that nature. How is CRW going to work for that type of trade?
Yeah, I mean, 90% of our assets are underground, just as the nature of the beast, water. But we do have some vertical structures that we look to renovate, that we look to redo, and those are publicly bid as well. So there are opportunities there. Obviously, it's not as many opportunities as doing some of the outside work, but there are opportunities there. But as Jackie talked about, there's projects that the city's doing. There's a lot of projects going on where some of that interior work can be done. But we can't. Our plants, there's only so many buildings on our plants that need work to be done. And when those projects come out, we bid them out. We just opened bids today. We're doing a large vertical structure at our wastewater plant. And those bids just came in today, with some minority participation on them. But when those projects come out, we put them out to bid. I mean, I was just saying, check pen bid all the time. That'll probably be your best friend, looking at pen bid to see what projects are out there that fit within what you're looking to do. But like I said, unfortunately, it is what it is with us. Our work is out in the streets.
I just wanted to, because you asked earlier about the workshops, and I just wanted to reiterate that the bonding program workshop sounds like it's something a lot of people could benefit from going from the small and medium range projects to moving on to larger ones. I think that's a big obstacle that a lot of these small businesses have, and that's one I think that you're going to need to repeat and really get the word out there, because I think there's a big need for that.
Yeah, and I think the industry's changed. I don't think it's as challenging as it used to be. And again, we're constantly talking to some of the professionals that work in bonding. and the insurances, and they'll be glad to come up and do a presentation. They're looking at this market as prime. You know, this is Harrisburg is kind of untapped as it relates to what's going on around us, whether you're in Baltimore, Philadelphia, as it relates to what's going on around us. Harrisburg is kind of untapped. So they're looking to come and show how small businesses can get bonding without providing any financial information, or things as small as maybe just a business plan, and how you can there's bonding opportunities out there. Again, I think some of we're fortunate enough to live in an area where we can tap into some of those resources. We can reach out to people in Philadelphia and Baltimore and DC, and they'll be glad to come up and talk and see and show how it can be done as it's being done there. Sorry.
Yeah, I want to get back to the training part. On these capital region projects, I mean, I'll say the school district is at fault and the city is at fault for the kids not being trained anyway. Because for one, they shut the VOTEC down a few years ago, and the kids had nothing. So they have a partnership with the county VOTEC, Dauphin County VOTEC, but they only get 20 slots for a high school. So you're basically telling them only 20 people can be successful, because at the end of the day, when you shut down the high school, you shut down everything for the kids. They have nothing to look forward to. They have no type of goals, because they don't even know they even able to do a lot of this stuff. But a lot of this capital region stuff, this is not nothing that you need to go to college for. So it's not all this extra training. It's not nothing. It's you digging in the ground. You can't mess up digging dirt. And at the end of the day, they try to make it like you have to be skilled. I've been doing this stuff for a long time now, and I watch these people bring in their kids, teach them how to do something on the job, and it's not nothing that is that skillful where you can't learn on the job and do maybe 1 or 2 jobs and know how to do it. Because I don't just for instance, I was watching them when they did the baseball field at the school, up this high school. Now they had a training for heavy equipment. They had the kids doing the training, but then when they had a contract come through the school district to do a baseball field, moving dirt, now how you gonna mess that up? You can't mess up moving dirt. So you should have had them kids getting some skill, getting trained in school to save money, because all they was doing was moving dirt. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you could blame everybody, from the city to the school district and to all these other agencies, because when y'all always crying about the kids doing this, doing that, but y'all ain't trying to, solve no problems, but you acting like you trying to give them an opportunity. But all this, you can ride in every block in this city, you see somebody digging up something, capital regions and everybody else. And I ain't seen not one minority out there unless they hold a flag. And at the end of the day, ain't no money in holding no flags. And it ain't no real skill that's needed to do what they're doing. You just gotta have a good back and be able to jackhammer some of that stuff up, cut it out, and start moving. And that's it. And half the time, these kids out here, most of them already been incarcerated or something, and they already strong enough to do that stuff. So, but y'all ain't giving them no opportunity, but you acting like it's take a brain surgeon to do what's being done out here. And it bothers me every time I come to these meetings. Y'all acting like somebody got to do it. It bothers me because y'all make it like it's something that they have to, be able to be skilled in. And it takes, all this training. And like I said, I watch them bring kids from all over the area, but none of them from here. Ain't none of the money coming back in the city. Y'all, all these projects going on, no dollar is being left in this city, because all the money's going outside the city, and then y'all wonder why y'all broke. So
you make some real good points, and even internally, we got like 50% of our workforce is ready to retire in the next 10 years, right? Right. And there's a shortage of young folks even considering this type of work. Right. So we're working with, or young folks getting put on the path to do this type of work in the schools. So we're working with the schools and with that and Stevens to work to develop programs to enhance the trades. The trades is where it's at. And right now the schools, they're teaching and preparing kids to go to college and get their 4-year degree, when the trades is where it's at. So we're working with the school district Thaddeus Stevens and HAT to put together and to identify trades programs where we could pull from. Because right now, like if you're a wastewater operator, if you go and get a 2-year certification or a 1-year certification for a wastewater operator, by the time you're done with your certification, you got 15 jobs lined up. So at CRW, we're not even getting to some of these people because they're getting scooped up so fast because of that shortage. So you're right. I mean, the need is there.
Juvenile detention center for those.
Exactly. So we got to.
There's not a shortage out there at the halfway house.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's only a shortage of money and opportunity to teach. That's the only shortage that we have.
Right. So the investment got to be there, and that goes back to that.
The only shortage we have is the money and the time to teach.
Right. The investment.
And
the will.
We just gotta say, you know, this is a workforce we got. It's here. It's here. Just like he said, it's not a hard.
Right.
You can show these kids this. I've shown many guys right off the street, and they help me out do this stuff. You know what I mean? So it's not a hard thing. You just need to have the opportunity. You have to have the money, and you have to have some sort of the will to do it.
So I think it goes back to one of the things we need to see. One of the things we all want to see is capacity building and training.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we want to see: capacity building and training in our neighborhoods, right? For our local.
I have one more, please. And this is solution. You talk about next steps. So the solution that I would have for the next meeting, when you bring these primes, these majority white companies in, instead of having is meet them as if they're empowered, I submit that you invite the Human Relations Commission in to have a conversation regarding unconscious and conscious bias, in regards to racism, in regards to workplace violence, and things like that. Because I think that, as a suggestion,
I appreciate that.
Would be something that could be very much helpful and avoid a lot of potential mishaps in our community.
Yeah. I'm glad you pointed that out too. You know, all the way down to meet the proms. Right. I know I appreciate that because I'm glad you saw it like that because
you can't shake your hand with a closed fist now.
Right. Exactly.
Especially when that fist got the money.
Right. Yeah. We'll talk afterwards on some solutions moving forward. I think we're cut for time, but I have one more question.
I was hearing that I think the city uses Penn Bid. You guys use Penn Bid?
Yes. Yep.
For the bidding opportunities. Just enlighten me. Does that have a placeholder list that we can reach out to as sub-consultants?
It does. Okay, so if you go into Penn Bid and you're looking at the solicitation, there'll be some tabs up there, and one of it will be bidders. And you click on that bidders list, and that'll be everyone who took down those plans. So everyone who downloaded those plans, that name will be on there. A lot of times it will ask them the role as well. So they'll be able to identify if they're a subcontractor, a supplier, or a prime contractor. So you can, pull it down into Excel and sort it, etc., to find all your primes or whatever it may be. But, a lot of times they may not identify as a prime, but you may recognize the name and know that they're, 9 times out of 10 a prime contractor. But there's a tab when you're looking into solicitation that says bidders, and that'll show you everyone who's taking down those plans.
We'll also post them on the city website.
Right.
But not the plans, there'll be a link to those.
And Nell said, are we already on the list that you're going to reach out to us now that we're registered? Is that what you said?
What was that?
If you're not on the list, if you're on the registration, we'll put you on the list.
From tonight, yeah. All your information to be shared with CRW and the city. So anytime any projects come out, we'll let you know that these projects are coming out. We're going to take all this information, dump it into our database. So you'll be, anytime we got projects coming out, you'll get a blast, let you know pre-bid meeting, when, where, and then we'll also send out a list of the prime contractors. And if your name comes up on the search, we'll shop your name around to the prime contractors as well. Yeah.
Just real quick, and I'll touch bases with anyone who wants to talk after the meeting. Just to introduce myself, my name is Cornelius Johnson. I'm on Harrisburg City Council. I know a lot of questions have been asked and saying, what's the city doing? What can we do more to support minority businesses? Years ago, 2003, there were policies and ordinances that were passed. They were passed, in my opinion, just for feel good. They have all these requirements, they have all these levels, but since 2003, we can clearly see within our community the same things still go on. And I think right now is the time where we're at the cusp where it's about to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars, and these are real life conversations right now. So one thing we have to do, we have to, not only myself, this has to be a top-down approach from city council, from the administration to kind of say, hey, just like what Mr. Singleton was just talking about, as far as we holding, you know, our prime contractors to the cuff of saying if we have these goals and we have these aspirations that they are meeting these requirements. It's also on the back end, while we can put policies in place to make sure that these minimums are being met, we also have to make sure that we are investing with the school district. A lot of times what's been happening is these conversations that's been happening in silos. So you'll have CRW doing their own thing, the city doing their own thing, then you got the school district going on their own thing. And a lot of times if those dots are not connecting and we really are developing the next level workforce, these requirements, this primes come back and say, hey, there's no one available. We all live in the city, grew up in the city, we all know people who are well qualified, who can do the work. Only thing they need is a little bit of training. So anything we can do as far as pushing that along, because one thing, my colleague back there, Dave Matson, we're trying to connect those dots to make sure all those people are at the table having this conversation. So this conversation is not contained in this room. It involves the school board members, it involves the superintendent, it involves our mayor, which is not here today. But we have to make sure if it's not coming from the top down of saying this is the direction for the city of Harrisburg, it never happened. So I'm glad everyone came out today, and hopefully this room continues to grow.
I would say they won't spend a dime if city council doesn't pass. Everybody meeting those ordinance requirements.
If you have one of those contractor information sheets,